All right, I'm Ann Lindsay. I'm the president of Lifeland Humboldt, and we're really happy today to have Maggie Kraft come make a presentation to help us downsize our homes. I just before we get going, I want to also let you know we're going to have another. We're having an Ollie webinar on April 8th at noon, and it's going to be answering all your questions about Lifeland Humboldt. And so, if you have questions ahead of time, you can send them to lph@lifelandhumboldt.org. Otherwise, we'll have plenty of time during the session to answer questions. And you can sign up at Cal Poly website under Ollie, and then you look into events, and that's the Monday brown bags. But we are really, looking forward to. We may not be moving into Lifeland Humboldt until 2028, but in the meantime, Maggie Kraft's going to give us some ideas to get going on straightening out and downsizing. You probably know Maggie as the executive director of Area 1 Agency on Aging. She's a social worker by training, and she has a long-term advocate for seniors and people with disabilities. And what you may not know is she's also a senior move manager and is a member of the National Senior Move Managers since 2014, which is with the intent of helping people address emotional and physical aspects of downsizing and moving from a long-term home. So without further ado, Maggie, take it away.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. It's nice to be here, see a lot of familiar faces. And yeah, thank you for giving me a chance to share some information. And yeah, 10 years. We started, I just want to say that this senior move management idea started here 10 years ago when our area agency saw that a lot of people needed help moving. And there wasn't really anybody out there. And I did some research, discovered that these, there's training and resources, and the agency started doing it. We called it Gold Star Move Management. And what happened was we couldn't sustain the model because of workers' comp costs. So I wish we could have, but the way that workers' comp gets charged, they were going to count all of my salary toward that workers' comp higher rate instead of just the few hours I might do in a week. So it made it impossible to continue. And I offered to buy the fledgling little operation from the area agency. And then I've been doing it since, I guess, 2017, maybe on my own. This is the other title I use for this presentation, just to give you a lousy pun, the art and craft of downsizing. So you can see that? Okay, just want to make sure I'm not talking to myself here. So I'm going to share things with you that you all probably know, and we all have ways that we get through life and do things. And so I don't think I'm going to share anything earth shattering, but maybe so, and maybe it will be helpful. I realized that I probably was a senior move manager before I knew it, because my mom moved a lot of times and I was always a person that showed up. One time I helped move her. I was in the Peace Corps, and I came home because my dad was sick and I knew he would be dying in the next couple of days. I came home from Peace Corps. This was in 2011. And my mom picked me up at the airport. My parents were not together at that point. She picked me up at the airport, took me directly to see my dad. I saw my dad, spent some time with him. Then she took me to her house where I was staying. And I walked in and I looked around. I go, "Mom, are you moving?" And she's like, yeah, I'm moving. I go, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm moving next week." And I looked at her like, "What's your plan?" I mean, nobody knew I was coming home until this very last minute. And so I spent the next 10 days after my dad passed and after we had the service helping my mom move. And I'm thinking, what's the plan, Mom? I do not recommend that you ever plan a move based on a family member showing up from overseas, because that's a tricky likelihood of that happening. It worked out for my mom, but it's not a good plan overall. So I think the first thing I want to recognize is that there's a lot of physical aspects associated with getting moving, the physical work of it. But I find the hardest part really for people is the emotional process. You can always get people to help you physically, but helping you with the emotional part is sometimes a little harder. And we'll get into some of those things in a bit. But um, I think it's really important when you start out is to know your why. So in theory, for all of you, your why is you want to move into Life Plan Humboldt. But since that why is a few years down the road, you have a different why now, which is you want to be ready to do that. You want to not do this all at once. Whatever your reason for wanting to go through this process of downsizing, sorting through your things, letting things go, you need to have a good reason for yourself. And I've worked with people who have clutter disorder and things, and sometimes the why they write down is, well, because so my daughter will stop bugging me. And that's not a powerful incentive. So try to look at it positively. I would have told that woman to say, well, maybe it's you want to deal with your clutter so you can see your grandchildren at your house. And think of the positive aspects. It just really helps. It really helps to know why you're doing this in the middle of it, because you're going to not want to do it all the time. And recognize that it's stressful. You spent many, many years accumulating the stuff you have. Depending on how you interact with things, we're all different on this continuum, but you may be very emotionally connected to the physical things you have. And so you're going to have feelings come up. And it took you many years to accumulate these things. It won't do you any good to try to unaccumulate them, let go of them very quickly. I think taking the time is really important. And if you look here, Life Plan 2028, that's 4 years away. So, it's not too early, because you do probably have a lot of things that you're holding on to and won't be able to take with you, and maybe won't want to take with you. Maybe this is going to be a great excuse to not have these things anymore, and you were looking for that. So there's a lot of positives to this process, but again, know that it's going to bring up stuff for you. So in that regard, stay away from people who are going to be negative about what you're doing. People say, you'll never get that done. You have too much. It's never going to happen. Just stay away from the people, the naysayers, and I think that's true in all of our lives, but especially around something that is so life-changing for you, and life-affirming, that if people are going to be negative about it, stay away from them. So consequently, you have to be around positive people and ask for help from these positive people. People who are in your life, who are happy to be in your life, are going to be happy to support you. So I don't know. I have a little bit, since you're not probably going to be selling your house today, because that would not be good. I'll go through this stuff quickly, because, and many, maybe some of you have sold a house, but maybe you're living in the house you've lived in for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And the market is crazy. We know that. We know things sell quickly. So it's just a different world than when you bought your house. Let's put it that way. I think, when you're starting to get close to that, you create a really realistic to-do list, and talk to a realtor, talk to somebody who knows the market and knows what's going on. And know that you don't have to, major remodels are not, or renovations are not necessary, that small things make a difference. And as you get closer to this process, having a list and kind of, when I sold my house, I had a color-coded list, and I had things by month and stuff. And I'm not usually that organized with color coding, but it helped me kind of stay on track. So there's lots of ways to do it. And be thinking about what must be done and what would be nice to do. And move managers often get involved in this process as you're starting to get your house ready to be on the market. Very often You want that because your house needs to look like it belongs to someone else when you're selling it. People need to be able to walk in and think, oh, I can see myself in this house, which means that you've got to reduce the clutter. You've got to get rid of all the family photos, and you got to make it feel big. There's a lot of things you have to do that take a little work. So we often can help you with that process as well. And in our market, I mean, in some bigger markets, they often bring furniture in and stage a house. We don't do that up here. We don't need to do that up here. We just need it to be spacious, clean, neat, and depersonalized a little bit. So, okay, you got your house sold. We're going to get packing, right? No, well, we're not. We're not going to get packing. Since you're thinking about moving from this house, which might be pretty big, to the space at Life Plan, or a smaller space probably than your current house, you need to look at the floor plan of where you're moving. And this is something Life Plan Humboldt needs to do a really good job of, I will say, is giving accurate measurements for the space that people are moving into. I've helped people move into assisted living, and it's not always accurate. And I think it's really critical that that it's accurate, where the outlets are, where the light switches are, so that you can plan how you're going to fit things in. Because without that, you're going to put something right in front of the outlet where you really needed to use that outlet. And so it's really helpful to have that planning tool, and then really play around and say, I want to take all this, but it's not going to fit, and get some grounding in reality with that. This reduce, reuse, and recycle, and we hear that a lot in our lives as we go along, but it applies also to when you're downsizing. And I want to talk about reducing. If you have stuff that you can pack already, and now, okay, pack now for 4 years later, you maybe probably don't really need it. The only things like that would be those, maybe your taxes. You need to keep, some papers and things like that. There may be some family heirlooms that you're taking with you. But maybe start to think about, should these family heirlooms have a different space? Should they be shared with other family members? Should they go into a museum? Because if they're in a box in the garage, you're not really taking advantage or having access to those heirlooms. So if you have things that you want to take with you, but they are stuck in a box and packed away, you really might want to be thinking about, why aren't they out and displayed? And now, obviously, tax papers, you're not going to do that, but the other stuff, the beautiful things. There's this one, how many of you have read books about downsizing? I'm just curious. I'm going to go here. Now I gotta get, how many of you, okay, some of you have read books about downsizing, and yeah, okay, I see some hands. There are so many books, and I always tell people, if you're reading a book, you're not downsizing, right? It's like it's a self-help book. We read the self-help books, and then we're like, okay, well, that helped, but we don't always do the work of it. So I always discourage people to read those, but I've seen some funny things in some of these books. You've heard of Marie Kondo and Does It Spark Joy? And of course, now that she has 3 kids, she realizes that having a tidy house is not the most important thing in the world. So, she was a young woman that learned that real life happens. But there was this one guy has this way of, he packs everything. He takes everything he owns. And I'm not recommending this. I'm just telling you, there's a wacky ways to go about life and downsizing, but packed up everything he owned. And then when he needed something, he took it out of the box and did this for a month or so, and then saw what he used in a month and realized that a lot of that stuff I mean, it was pretty, that's pretty extreme, but there's in every piece of downsizing advice, there might be an element that you could take. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. I don't want to go through the struggle of packing everything and then having to unpack it. But I thought that was an interesting way of really seeing how you live your life. Think about your closet, your clothing, and if you did that with just your clothing and packed it all up and then only pulled out what you're going to wear, how much of that clothing would still be in those boxes? Because we all tend to wear the same thing a lot more than we've got all that stuff. But anyway, if that's helpful. So a lot of people, when they're starting to get ready to move, they start packing, which seems like the right thing to do, except for it really is important to start sorting first. And in your situation where you have time, you're not moving next week, you have time, really sorting, figuring out how many books do I have, and they talk about like with like, put all your books, or at least be aware of all your books so that you can make a decision about all your books. And this is something Marie Kondo always pushed, was this like, get all the same stuff together and look at it as in context. So like, if you have a lot of skiing caps, you have them all over the house, you may not know how many you have. Put them all together and go, do I really need 40 skiing caps? Or wooden spoons, how many wooden spoons do you need? And so sorting things like with like, to really, you may have things all through your house, similar things stored here, stored there. So before you pack anything, don't go pack the dining room and then go pack the library or whatever, because you're going to be seeing the same stuff everywhere. And it's bring those things together. Pack a box full of tape, Scotch tape. Then you might go, yikes, I have way too much Scotch tape. And then you'll know what you have and you'll see it. And then you'll be able to say, I don't need that much of this. But if you pack, once a month, you pack a box and you've got a box, in different places, you may not keep in your head how much of the same stuff you're packing over and over again. So they really recommend that you start sorting your things. And then pack the ones that are in the best shape. If you have 5 of the same type of thing, which one do you need 5? Maybe you need 2. Okay, take the best 2. Toss doesn't mean literally toss it out. It means toss it out of your life, which would mean donate it, give it away. Really try hard not to just put things in the landfill. You have things that you may not need anymore, but someone else can use. And one of the things I really find important in my work is to help people understand that if they let go of something, it doesn't mean they're throwing it out. A lot of people don't want to let go of things because they assume the only place it's going to go is the landfield. I was going to say the landmine, but the landfill. And they don't want to throw things out. So instead, they keep it at home, and it's almost like they create a landfill in their house because they're afraid to put it in the landfill. What I say to you is, many things I can find places and homes for. There's a lot of different, and there are some things that have served their purpose, their life, and they do go to the landfill. But don't let that worry keep you from letting go of things, because we can find homes for a lot of these things. So donate. Well, we'll get to that more in a minute. But yeah, and you only pack once you know you're keeping it. I've seen people not be able to make decisions and pack things, pay to move them. And then when they get to where they're going, then they have to make the decision, always, I packed too much. And then they're still making the decision to get rid of something, but they've paid now to move it. And they might have paid to pack it, whereas they could have, if they were able to get tough and say, I really don't need 2 of these, they would have left one behind to begin with. Or what happens, I've seen also, is a person who moves from a very spacious home to a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom space and brings too much. The stuff never gets out of the boxes. or the stuff gets out of the boxes and gets put in a corner, and all of a sudden you've gone from a person who lived in a very spacious home to a person who looks like you hoard, because you just have too much for the space you're living in. And it's not that you suddenly became a person who hoards, it's just you haven't let go of enough. And then you're going to be tripping over the stuff. It's going to be in your way, and you're not going to get the value out of it if you can't use it. So always think about sorting, tossing, and tossing the whole piece of tossing before packing. Like I said, why are you gonna, if you're tossing it later, toss it now. Donate, toss, whatever. The other thing we all should be doing in our lives right now, at this point in our lives, is really think hard before you buy something. And I bet you all, most of you, how many of you are kind of in that space where you don't want presents for your birthday, right? Don't give me anything. Give me experiences. Let's go out to eat. Let's do something like that. Don't give us stuff, right? And God forbid that you have some kind of a collection that happened along, because when people see that, they think you're still collecting and they'll give you one of those, right? And all of a sudden you have more and more of them. So let's all be good friends to each other and not give each other things. That said, yeah, so limit your purchases. What I try to do is, sometimes I'll write something down that I think I want. I'll put it on a list and I'll just let it sit there. And then, I might, and wait a while. Maybe I'll find that list a while later and go, oh yeah, I don't need it. I went all this time without it. If you want to get really tough love, you leave your credit cards at home. And I also, in terms of just reducing the clutter and the overwhelm, is opening and sorting your mail every day is probably one of the most important things you can do for your sanity. I'm not compulsive about it, but I do it because what happens when you don't open your junk? Well, oh, and by the way, you don't have to open your junk mail before you throw it, before you get rid of it. My poor stepmom, she opens all her junk mail and sorts it, because there's the stuff that has her name on it. There's the envelope, there's the sticky. And unfortunately, because she got on a lot of mail, she gets a lot of mail because she subscribed to magazines and stuff. And her mail has taken over her life. So the best part about moving too is a lot of this stuff won't follow you, which I think is the number one reason to move every few years, is so the junk mail doesn't follow you. I also want to put in a plug to making only local donations to nonprofits, because if you donate to a nonprofit out of the area, you get on their list, they sell their mailing list, and you're getting stuff from lots of different people. Local nonprofits, we don't sell our mailing lists. We don't do that. So if you donate to Life Plan Humboldt, she's not going to go and give me your mailing list and say, here, Maggie, go ask them for money. We don't do that because we respect our local folks and don't want to do that to you. So think about who you're getting your mail from and try to cut back on that. There are do not call lists, although they don't work very well, it seems. You can also get on a do not mail list, and you have to do that periodically. I don't have the information here, but if you go and Google it, there's a way to put your name in and try to reduce the mail you're getting. So I love this quote from William Morris, and he said, have nothing in your home that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful. And I add to him, in this day and age, he was back at a time where people did not have such easy access to so much like we do. But I would add to that, and if you know it's useful, then use it. And if you believe it to be beautiful, then put it someplace you can see it. If you have a lot of useful things that you never use and a lot of beautiful things that you never look at, then really they aren't useful or beautiful anymore, because you're not taking advantage of the purpose of those things. So again, if it's not useful and it's not beautiful, ask yourself, why do I have this? There's lots of reasons, but you don't have to. So I talked a little bit about you got reduce, reuse, and now recycle. Recycle to me again is donate, sell, give to friends and family. Again, we talked about not gifting things to each other, but give it to younger people. It's hard, actually. A lot of the younger folks don't want our stuff. And that's fine. It's okay. It doesn't mean you should keep it forever. But there are people, I mean, I work in the work I do, I'm always talking to different people. I know folks that work at family resource centers who are helping foster youth who are aging out of the system move into their own places. They have nothing. They have nothing. They have no dishes. They have nothing. They will take so much of what we have that we're not using. And of course, always recycle and dispose of things properly. I know it's frustrating when you're doing it right and everyone else isn't, but just do it right. You feel better about it. We help dispose toxic things. We'll take your medicine away and dispose of that. So this stuff should not be just thrown into the landfill. And again, like I said, letting someone else start their new life with these things, you could really help families, people who have had, disasters, fires, they have nothing. You could really help people. So, this is the question you'll probably ask yourself a lot, or if you have a partner, you'll ask them a lot. Just be aware if you start asking them this a lot, they get to ask you this a lot. So, be careful here. But why are you keeping that? And we have a lot of we think are good reasons for keeping stuff. Well, we paid a lot of money for it, right? How many of you have said, I spent a lot of money on that? That's one reason, we like to keep stuff. But I think you have to ask yourself when you bought it, did you buy it as an investment that would grow in value and then you would someday sell it? Maybe now's the time to sell it. Or did you buy it as an item that you're going to use in your daily life? And if it was a daily life item, it served you. It did its job. You got the investment back. You got your money back from that. It may not be worth what you spent on it anymore. It doesn't matter if you spent a lot on it, you got it back. And then holding on to something just because you can't sell it for what you paid for it or what you think it's worth. That's another thing we do. That's why we keep stuff. It's like, well, this is worth a lot. If I sell it, I can sell it, but you never do anything. You don't make that step to sell it. You just talk about how you could sell it. It doesn't help you to do that. And again, sometimes we think we invested, but it's not an investment. It's not about what you spent on it. It's about what somebody will pay for it now. That's what the value of anything is. It's not what we spent on it. It's what somebody will pay for it right now. Now, the other thing, my mom had this, we all have something in our house. My mom had this red cardinal that somebody gave her because my mom said once she liked red cardinals. It's a ceramic cardinal. And I moved that cardinal so many times, wrapped it up, moved it so many times because, my mom loved red cardinals. Finally, we were sitting there toward the end of her life and she's looking at stuff. And every time I'd see her, she'd go and she'd say, oh, we should get rid of stuff. I go, Mom, it's okay. You don't have to. You're fine. Your closet's not full. Everything's good. She was just always trying to say, Mom, it's okay. We don't have to do this. But then, she'd go, well, like that red cardinal. I go, yeah, what about the red cardinal? And she goes, oh, somebody gave it to me. And I go, well, it sounds like you don't really like it that much anymore. She goes, no, not really. I go, well, are you worried that person's going to show up and not see the cardinal in your house? And she looked at me and she goes, God, I think that person's long gone. I go, okay. So do you want the cardinal or do you not want the cardinal? But I know people give us gifts and then, we think they're coming and looking for it. Your friends should not be doing that to you. Again, those are the negative people. If you don't love it, pass it on. Someone else is going to love it. Someone's going to love that thing. So, so this is not, you don't need to do this yet, but you do need to have a moving plan. And don't plan to do it all by yourself. I think we are at an age where we've learned this. And also don't ask your friends to help you with the moving. We're at the age where we should be hiring professionals to move us. Um, and just you bite the bullet. But again, if you've downsized and you've gotten rid of things you don't want to move, then there's less to pay them to move. It's kind of like your money or your friends. You want to break the backs of your friends, or do you want to spend, the money? You kind of have to figure it out. But it's it's not necessary to do it yourself anymore. And there's lots of it's really important to write down what you're doing and have a plan. There's lots of guides on the internet of moving guides, making the list of who you have to contact for all the mail and all these different things. And it can seem overwhelming. And at times it will be, but it's more overwhelming if you push it all into a short period of time. If you do, like right now, the best thing for you folks to be doing is to start those things that you really don't love, you don't use, you don't need, they're broken, the stuff you're going to fix. How many of you have stuff you're going to fix? I will say that, well, anyway, you're not going to fix it, or give yourself a timeline, or say if you have 20 things you're going to fix, keep 5 of them and commit to fixing 5. Just think it through. Is this how you want to spend your time now in your life? Either fixing those 20 things or being down about not fixing those 20 things. Do you need to look at these things every day to remind you haven't taken care of them? Or do you need them out of your space and say, okay, you know what? If all that they say about me when I die is I didn't fix 20 things, hey, I'll take it. It's like, think that through. We all have that stuff we're going to fix. There may be people out there who will fix it. There may be people who will take it broken. But move it along. Moving things out of your home that really don't serve you anymore. And doing this isn't admitting that these things you're not saying that these things are not good things or you don't like them. You're saying they're not serving you anymore. They had their time with you. You enjoyed them. You used them. They made sense. They don't make sense for your life anymore. I mean, I think a lot of us, those of you who have a lot of sports equipment, the sports equipment, the sports I did when I was 20 are not the sports I'm doing now. And it's okay. There are other things to do, but how many are hanging on to sports equipment that, well, I spent a lot on that, and I had good times. I went skiing, I had good times with that, and it's a memory, it's a trigger. It's like, good times. And then you start saying, I can't ski anymore. And then you start feeling sad about it. It's like, when you look at an object, really pay attention to what the feelings it evokes. And if it is evoking positive feelings, keep it. If it takes you down a negative path, why are you keeping it? I see, Jim, you have your hand up. Is there something you want to ask or say? You're muted.
Yeah, no, I'm just recognizing I've gone through this process. I'm 2 years into it, so I'm seeing a lot of mistakes that I made over that 2-year period, but I'm unable to do some of the things that you're recommending, and sports is one of them because I don't want to give up things that I enjoy that when I get more time, I'll be able to use. And I think that's a control thing. I don't want to admit I'm 80. And so that's a positive thing for me if I can look forward to remaining engaged. And a lot of that involves things. So I'm a little bit off on my own track here, but everything that you're saying is recognizable to me. And I go along with it. If it fits your positive feelings about it, if you have negative feelings about something, get rid of it. But I have a lot of interest, and so I have a problem getting rid of a lot of those things. I mean, I am doing it gradually, but agree with you. It takes a long time. And so I'm well into that process and agreeing that you should start now. Anybody should start now so that you can get it done in time. I'm not
Yeah.
disagreeing. I'm just not in the,
No, and that's a good point. I think you're right. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who are still actively engaged in those things, or like you say, there might be a time where you can re-engage and do it, and that makes sense to hold on to things. I think that the challenge with downsizing is that you just can't have as much stuff, whether you love it all or not. It's like, and it's that hard part that you're talking about of deciding, of all these interests I have, how can I maintain all of them? And if so, at what capacity? And finding that balance. And it's different for everybody. I sold my house. I had a beautiful garden. I was on the garden tour 2 years. But I sold my house. And I realized that my garden, I mean, my hands, I have arthritis, my back, I have arthritis, my knees, I have arthritis. I blame soccer. I don't know what this is. I blame typing. But I walked away from that garden, and it took years before I even wanted to put a plant in a pot. And I still, I mean, so for me, it was like, I'm not walking around remorsefully wishing I had a garden. I'm walking around going, actually, I walk around going, with all the time I spend in my garden that I'm not spending now, I should be doing something more productive than what I'm doing. That's my thought. But I'm not thinking, oh, I wish I was gardening.
well, I do. And so I just my own personal, I don't want to dominate this, but my wife passed away a couple of years ago. We had fixed up houses and sold them, and we'd been doing this for the entire 45 years of our marriage. So I'm sick of realtors, sick of that whole process. I've been through it a number of times, but every house that we moved into needed work, needed us to put our own personal touch in. So what did I do after I sold our 2,300 square foot house and I downsized it by half and bought a small house in Arcata? I'm out here landscaping. If I weren't with you guys, I would be out there planting trees. So I'm just saying, I think
No,
everybody.
and I think everyone's
individual
different.
life.
I think that's great. I think that's great. And you're doing that. And I'm just saying, if you're not doing that, like me, it's great too.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a personal,
Yeah, and the important thing with this is thinking about all the things that you're doing now that you don't enjoy doing by having a house, by having a large space. That's part of the beauty of Life Plan Humboldt is their goal is to take care of some of that kind of stuff that is more the mundane, the management of property, the bad part of managing property, that as you have a large house and you're not as active out in the garden or whatever. So that's the advantage of something like a Life Plan Humboldt, is that the more unfun tasks of home ownership are taken off your plate. But if there's not a garden there to look at or to work in, then people who want to still garden are going to be saying, hey, I'm missing this.
well, there are other things to do. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just thankful that Ann is saying I've got 4 years to I can walk away from it anytime. I can, because I've done that, just walked away from something that my wife and I spent a lot of time on. But in 4 years, I can continue to do a lot of things I think that I do like to do, but the space that I have, I can do it in. But if I had to move, I mean, it's going to take me 4 years to get to that point. I'm glad we're able to plan for 4 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
So think about, I've talked about these a little bit, but there's lots of options here. And again, it's not about the move, it's about the stuff. And people, I think I alluded to this already, but people don't look at our stuff the way we do. And I think understanding that, but also not letting that get in our way of letting go of things anyway. Because you are not Your home should not look like a storage unit. Your home should not look like a landfill. It should be a place that you love to be in and live in. And you know, the thing is like, we've all been around the block a few times. We've had to make tough decisions before. We've had to choose between two paths. And you'll do it again. You'll figure it out and you'll choose, you know, the things you want to keep and the things you want to let go of, and it will be okay. It'll be okay. Again, reminders, curb your expectations if you think you're going to sell your stuff. We see things on television, you know, the antique roadshow and, you know, all these people telling us what they think our stuff is worth. You know, talk to an expert, recognize that some of it is not worth your time and energy to sell. If you like having yard sales, I used to do it periodically because I thought it was very entertaining to interact with all the crazy people that came to my house. And when I say crazy, I don't mean, I'm not diagnosing, I'm saying it was just crazy fun, you know, but I didn't make a lot of money. I did it for the fun. So if you're doing it for the money, then make sure you have realistic expectations. Know what know what it costs, and know what options are, you know, if we lived in a big city and you had lots of really fancy antiques, you would have a bigger market than your antiques have here. And that's just a reality of it. So lots of different, I just listed a sample of all kinds of options available to sell things. And then, you know, think about time and energy. That's what I'll say about how much time it takes you versus what the payout is for you to do it. And for some of you, like me with the yard sale, it was worth it. It was fun. But if it's not fun, not worth it, don't do it. And then, yeah, we already talked about being realistic. The other thing is, you know, if you make donations, like I said, you do get, you know, you do get a tax write-off. I know that the exemption rates are high, but that may matter. That may help you with your taxes. And letting other people use things is almost always better than storing it. If your decision is to give it away and someone will use it right now, to renting a storage unit and putting in a storage unit, I can tell you that a storage unit is the worst possible long-term solution for your things. Storage units, I mean, if you see in the paper how often storage units get emptied out because people stop paying for, they've paid for their stuff, but then they've stopped paying for it and then it all gets sold. Or people who go in and things are ruined because they didn't store them properly. You want the stuff you love to be near you. And if you can put something in a storage unit, unless it's something that it's like seasonal, you know, if you're putting seasonal things like your jet ski or something, I don't know what, but makes sense. But if you're putting stuff there because you don't have room for it at your house, then you got to keep working a little bit longer to figure it out. And of course, the leftovers, you've got your curbside pickup twice a year. We get that. There's places for toxic items to go. There's some places you can post and people will come pick up stuff for free. Make sure you're shredding things that need to be shredded, but and there's Shred-aware so that if you put together enough of it, you can take it there and they can take care of that. You don't need to shred everything, but you definitely want to shred things that have the kind of information that's could get somebody into trouble on your behalf. So I always suggest, you know, you start having boxes and space. You think about what you're doing in like big picture thing, like you're keeping it, you're keeping it, you're throwing it away, or you're donating it. And to me, that, you know, there's that stuff you have to keep till you'll die kind of things, you know, like certain paperwork and like, but then there's the stuff keep because I'm using it. And really think hard about how often you use. I mean, if you have something in the kitchen that you use once a year, can something else step in and serve that purpose that once a year? You know, all the machinery we have that only does one thing. You you know, think about how valuable that is when you have very little space or relatively little space. Some questions to ask yourself. Do I really need this? Why? Do I use it? Will I use it in the next 6 months? When was the last time I used it? What's the worst thing that could happen if I toss it and then I later need it? Some people subscribe to the, if I can get this, if I can get this easily for under 20 bucks, if I ever need it again, I'm going to get rid of it now because I haven't used it in 6 months or whatever, you know, and we're all different in terms of what that dollar amount is. If I can't get it at the dollar store, I'm going to keep it. I don't know, whatever you decide it is. But, and then again, this points to some of us who have things about hobbies. Will I continue to pursue this interest or hobby? And if it makes me happy to have this thing, will I still feel happiness without the item? I mean, can I still go to that item or remember that and still feel happiness? Sometimes taking pictures of items that make us happy, but we can't keep them in the space. You know, like if you have collections of things, you know, taking pictures of the different things and framing them in a way. I've seen teacup collections, pictures taken where then they have the picture of the teacup collections and not all the teacups, as an example. And then here's, you know, Marie Kondo. Is it beautiful? Will I use it? Do I really love it enough to move it, store it, repair it, use it, display, and care for it? Does it bring me joy? Does it mean more to someone I don't want to upset if I toss it? And can I find joy by giving it away? Breathe, of course. Remember, life is about living, not our stuff. We are not our stuff. Our stuff just kind of got tangled up in our lives with us, but we really are not our stuff. And we all know we can't take it with us. So be thoughtful. And I think helping other people start out their lives with some of the stuff you have can be a real powerful way to give, to pay it forward, so to speak. So now I'm going to open it up to specific questions or comments. Okay, how about photos? Photos, what I did finally with my photos, and it took a while, but I'm glad I did it, is, you know, I had photo albums back in the day where they gave you 2 of everyone. Remember, we got 2 pictures. Remember those days? You got real pictures, you got 2. And you got them whether they were good pictures or not. And I dutifully put them in my photo album, you know. And so the first thing I did is I went through all these photo albums that were not the best place to store these pictures, really. And I pulled them all out. I got rid of the duplicates, unless it was like a photo I wanted to give to somebody and keep. But I got rid of the duplicates. I got rid of all the crappy photos, unless it was a crappy photo that was like the only crappy photo I had of that person, you know, things like that. But I went through and I culled my pictures, and then I started sorting them, and I put them in a different kind of container, and then I scanned them. Or I paid to have them scanned. I shouldn't say I scanned them. I paid to have them scanned. So I have them in the cloud. I have them on a thumb drive, and I have the physical pictures. And I did this for my mom's pictures too. And that I had to do it with her a little bit, which was kind of fun. We did it before her last move. And I'm like, you know, and it was fun for her to look at them. And sometimes she's like, I don't know who those people are. And I'm like, okay, you know, and off it goes. But and then we culled them. So it's like, how many pictures of that one person at that event smiling that way do you want? And I started saying, okay, one of those is good. So I started culling them a little bit with her involvement. And then I have them in a container that I can pull the hard pictures out, but I can also go to my thumb drive, or I can go into the cloud and I can pull them down and I can send them to people. So that's what I did with pictures. Lori, your hand is up. I see you also have a comment here in the chat. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, no, I wanted to reiterate what you were saying, and I'm sorry I'm not on on view there. I got Sally Wonk getting here and didn't get to brush my hair.
No apologies needed.
But what you said about like is the stuff causing you more distress about it being there? I have all this stuff that I was collecting to eBay, but my life's changed. I don't need that money. Some of it's I've had for 20 years, and now when I look at it, it causes me distress, and I'm like, I don't care what it's worth. It's not worth being distressed about.
Right.
And I should just give it away. So
Yeah.
that was my comment.
And I bet you can find, you can go to the, the Family Resource Center in your neck of the woods, and they're always, working with families that are needing things. I mean, and you could really help out some young people or other people struggling to just, have a little bit more of the American life that we all have so much of.
Yes, it's shameful that I'm hoarding it, basically. So
Well, and
yeah,
nothing,
pass it on.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. And you said, how do you suggest getting rid of things that might be valuable? So there are, I mean, I think you have to decide okay, so there are estate sale people who will do, pre-estate sales. Like if you have a lot of good stuff, they'll come in and do an estate sale. They take 40%, but they organize everything. They price everything. They know what things are priced, so they don't run it like a yard sale. I mean, they're not going to give away your priceless heirlooms because they want 40% of the cost. So they're not trying to offload everything. They're trying to sell it for a good price the first day or the second day. Then they start, lowering prices. But talking to, eBay or online, Facebook has marketplace, Nextdoor has marketplaces. There are, more options in bigger areas. We have a few antique dealers here who, if you have antiques, they might be willing to buy them. There's some furniture places that sell secondhand furniture, and they will buy them from you at a price that they can then turn around and sell it and make some money. So I think the important thing is, I mean, if it's art, if it's something that has a broader interest, I think you've got to talk to maybe art dealers out of the area or other dealers out of the area and just do some research that way. It's again finding that, how much time you want to put into it versus how much time, what the real value is. And sometimes we don't know that value unless you run it by somebody who has that expertise. I'm looking at the comments in the chat first here. Who did the picture scanning? At the time I did my pictures was when we were running this program through this, through Area 1, and we had bought a scanning machine. And so I paid whatever rate we had figured out we were going to charge for scanning. I paid that rate to the agency to do it. I now have that scanning machine, but I don't know how to use it. And I mean, I suppose I could make that available to people, but that's what I did. But there are other companies that you send your pictures to and stuff. Again, you'd want to cull them down and really not send them everything, you want to sort them out and stuff, but there are companies that do that. I think in terms of digitizing, I wonder what like the library, whether the library or the historical society does some of this. Locally, it would be probably photo shops and Staples or Costco. I don't, Scrapper's do they? Good. Scrapper's Edge does it, does photo digitizing. So those are good resources. They're the most local of them. Jim, I saw you put your hand up. Do you still have it up?
All I was going to say is that 7 years ago, we went through this, my wife and I went through this process when we moved out of the area. Carl Johnson's used to be fairly good about having, you could at least get something for your old antique chairs and things like that. Having come back 2 years ago and trying to go through the same process, it was made clear to me that this really isn't an area where there's a lot of people that are buying those kinds of things anymore. In that intervening 5 years, the economy
Yes.
changed. We had the pandemic, so that's not as good a choice. So I don't expect to get a whole lot for things like old chairs that you've refinished and those kinds of things. It really has to be something that's valuable, and then you're not going to get much for them, just as a comment.
I think that's true, and I've been hearing that also, and I know I've had somebody recently I spoke to just struggling to get them Carl Johnson's to return the
Right.
to get back to them. I did a few years ago when Don was still around, had good luck with them for some things with some of my clients, but yeah, things change and the market changes and the people with the money, you know, yeah, I mean, younger people are consuming differently than we are or we did.
We're not collecting as much junk as we did.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? They're young, so they still have time. They might, they're trying to look good now, but check back with them in 10 years. And Marie Kondo, after she had a few kids, she stopped organizing everything. So, because, her kids brought her joy, so she wasn't worried about the stuff. So, I mean, you never know.
You never
It's
know. One other comment, in terms of what to do with the time that we all have remaining. I'm a local historian and I used to do some interviews. I've had a lot of relatives who died without giving their story or passing photos along to tell who was who, and just kind of, I've had to reconstruct some of that myself, and that might be a useful thing to do if people have time to do it too, just from that standpoint. I think older people have a lot to give back if they have families that care about generational issues. So
Yeah, I think that's a good point. My dad went through some of his old family photos and wrote on the back of some of them who the people were, and it really means a lot to me because to see my grandmother and my great grandmother when my grandmother was a 2-year-old on a pony kind of thing. I mean, but I would never have known who it was necessarily otherwise. So that's a really good thought to write on the back. So I was like, oh, I'll remember who that is. It's like 30, 40 years ago. You will, but your kids won't, your grandkids won't. So,
Right.
and thank you, Jen, about the e-waste. Yeah, Fortuna is pretty cheap. I've taken stuff down to them and yeah, they're $2 for an item, but I've given them buckets of stuff and they're like, okay, $2 for all that stuff. And Redway will take it for free. So if you want to drive down to Redway or on your way through town, that's good to know. Yes, Lori.
I was just gonna say, a friend of mine said for like old photos, and old photos now means like the 1970s, but Shrine Historical Societies. Like I had all these photos from my aunt's wedding, and she had no children, and nobody wanted them, really, including me. What am I going to do with her wedding photos? And my friend said, well, a historical society from Los Angeles, where the wedding was, might be really interested in them. So
Yeah.
that's, like even if you don't think it's like a historical photo, it might be.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I've taken things from clients to the Historical Society here, not very often, but occasionally. And, they're often, if it's a local thing that's got some historical value to it, or let them decide, but they often will take it. I don't know what I took them now. I can't remember, but they took it and they were happy to. So that is a good option. Yeah. Staples will take, Kay, hi Kay, Staple will take 2 items for free. How often? If they see me coming, they'll go, you got a business. It's like, no, I just get rid of a lot of stuff. I don't know. But yeah, probably every once in a while. And Kate, you are using your copier scanner to digitize photos. So every Monday, haha. Okay, Kate. Yeah, I better not. Maybe I'll go every other Monday or something, but yeah. No, Fortuna is great. I like going there. So yeah, Fortuna's garbage dumping is more expensive, but they don't mix their recycling in with it. So you're not dumping, they're not weighing your recycling like they do in Eureka, where it's only $12. But anyway, it's like it's new math. I mean, the figuring all this out. And that's one of the things that we do is when we work with somebody, it's like you don't have to figure that out anymore. We take care of that. We go and make that happen. So you're not, because I know before I started doing this, I've always been probably the only person in my family who liked to be organized. And I'm sure my sister's traumatized as a result of it. But before I started doing this, I hated when I'd put a bunch of stuff I wanted to donate into my car, and the first place I went, they're like, oh, we're not open, or, oh, we don't take that. You hate that. It just makes you crazy because now you got in your car and you're frustrated. You don't know where to go. Now I'm just like, oh, just give it to me. I'll take it. I'll figure it out. I got a place for it. I always, it's not a big deal because we know where all the different places are doing what. But but I know what it feels like to have done that. And it's yeah. Michael, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'll make a little testimonial because I did work with Maggie a year ago when I was moving, and she did exactly that. And it really was helpful. And she kind of had a rule: once I decided about something, she would just put it in her Prius and get it out of there that day. And she took things to toxic. She took some of the things that could be sold somewhere. She took a spare bed that I had and put it in her garage till she could bring it somewhere. And it was really worth it to have somebody who could just help me psychologically to deal with it all, but also just physically. And she had a helper that came along one time, and I rented a truck and we moved stuff and got it done. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Michael, and I enjoyed working with you, and I hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Laptops, old laptops, they I know Renaissance I have an old laptop sitting here that they will what's it called, wipe for me. There's also, I guess, so there, yeah, you should definitely have um they will also, well, they will retrieve what's on it for me and put it on a flash drive or on another computer if I take it in there. So they'll do that. I mean, they'll charge a fee, but they will take it off and they will destroy it. I know, and there might be other computer places, but I know Renaissance and Arcata will do that, and they're really nice. And libraries, well, the library, I know they take all kinds of books for their book sale, and sometimes they might take books that you donate and put them into their circulation, but they often use most of the books you take there. They sell them and raise money for their stuff. And yeah, you also can just take a hammer to your hard drive. I heard there's other ways to do it, but I'm not going to do that to mine. Definitely do that though. Definitely make sure you don't turn in a laptop or computer until you've wiped the hard drive, because people are mean. Free Cycle, I think is a great resource because it's like you can't sell anything on it, but if you have stuff that you want to give away for free, people will come. Now, because I do work with a lot of people with hoarding disorder, I worry sometimes that the people who are coming are just taking one bunch of stuff and hoarding it somewhere else. And I know to some extent that some of the people have shown up at those places when I've done these jobs, that has probably happened. But my job was to get it removed from where it was, and not put it in the landfill. So I have mixed feelings, but I'm not going to stop people from hoarding simply by quizzing people when they come to my situations and say, are you going to hoard? I mean, I'm not going to stop it. So, but it is a way to get rid of things effectively, quickly. Yes, Miranda's takes stuff Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 10 to 2 on, and their Fortuna place also takes, their Fortuna shop's the biggest shop, and they take stuff on Saturdays as well. Craigslist, yeah, is good for free stuff. Zero Waste Humboldt is also doing some things, more creative things, or having clothing swaps they've set up. Yeah, Mission takes stuff. I used to think that Mission is like where I'd use it is I'd make the stop to Mission thrift last, and whatever they didn't take, I would end up going to the dump. But they have moments where they're just not taking certain items because they have enough of them. So I don't always do that anymore, because I'm like, well, they're not taking this because it's crap. They're not taking it because they have enough already. So I go find somewhere else. But antique china. So there are some antique stores in town. There's a couple, you know, where Eureka Theater is. Wendy Petty owns the 2 shops on the adjacent side of the Eureka Theater. And she also does estate sales. So she will sometimes buy, buy items to resell. Or she can sometimes tell you what the value of those items are. I think sterling silver now is valuable as just, they'll melt it down. Most people buying sterling silver at this point are going to melt it and use it for, unless that market's dropped again. But, the last time I took silver in, it was like, yeah, this is worth something, but it's probably not going to remain in, in the form it's in. And, they'll give you a little bit of money for it. It's just checking with different sales, different shops or online. There are websites that you can sell these things. And, I'll tell you a story. I had my dad's, these plates, it was a dinner set for 12 that my dad's mom's family had at Niagara-on-the-Lake. They had the inn called the Oban Inn. It's still operating, but it's not in the family anymore. And these dishes came from that place. And at one point, when my dad gave them to me, I looked up the pattern and discovered that these dishes were worth a lot of money, but I didn't want to sell them because they were family heirlooms. Fast forward 5 years later, they're not worth anything on that market. But they were worth something to my nieces, and I split the set between 2 nieces, and they each got a set of 6. So, it's the value. That's a good value. They're staying in the family, but I could have sold them, but then I wasn't ready to. So, the jewelry class at college loves sterling. Oh, that's a good idea. Gold jewelry. I don't know. I think I'm more of a senior move manager than a person who sells stuff. I enjoy more working with you and helping you go through the process than I do, and trying to figure out what things are worth. But antique shops, Wendy Petty, those places, there's supposedly a new shop. Don't go to the what are they called? Where you sell things on the cheap because you need money. Pawn shops. But there is supposed to be this new shop opening over on Samoa, where the bridge is, and 4th, that might be buying some of those things, but I haven't seen them open yet. Oh, that's what you're saying, Karen, as I'm speaking. You're putting it right out there. But yeah, replacements.com, right? That's a place to go for the China, because what they'll do is sometimes there are people looking for 1 or 2 pieces of a set, and you might have those, and then you can sell them, or you can get some for your own set. That's where I saw my set worth a whole bunch, and then 5 years later, it wasn't there anymore. The last person collecting that set finally died, and I didn't sell all mine to her before it happened. So anyway. you know, I always have to, it's just, this is stuff. This is stuff. And when we get too attached to it, hardly ever does it benefit us. So, you know, the other thing too is I always, you know, there's often people who say, oh, I want to go and do this I want to do this so my family doesn't have to, right? And what I say to you is only do it. Well, if you're doing it to move, you should do it. But if you're planning to stay where you live now and never move, and you're just doing this so your kids don't have to do it, I will say to you first, only do that if you're not feeling like you're wasting the rest of your life doing it. Don't spend the last years of your life dealing with your crap just because you think you should. If you don't want to, and you don't have to, you know, if you are not renting and you're not hoarding and you've got stuff, but you know, it's contained and you don't want to do it, don't do it. Your kids will deal with it, and they'll take a lot less time to do it than you will. They will just, and I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that, you know, life is short, and you have to decide how you want, what kind of pain you want. And if this is super painful for you, then do the minimum that you have to do, but don't make it the rest of your life. I mean, and I always say that, and I lose jobs that way, but that's fine. I want you not to spend your life feeling like this is the last thing you have to do. And if you don't do it, somehow you're failing. No, this stuff is stuff. This stuff will outlast you. So you need to spend your time enjoying what it is that you want to do before it's too late. So that's, I guess, my last words of wisdom. Because this should not make you miserable doing this. That's what I will say. Everyone could go through their house anytime, and see things that they don't need anymore or don't want anymore. I do it regularly. Have a bag or box somewhere that you just drop it in. When it fills up, take it away. And just make it a habit. Once you make it a habit, you know, you could say, oh, it's Monday. I'm going to bring a bag over to, you know, 10 to 2. I'm going to take a bag to Miranda's every Monday or something like that. You know, make it a habit, make it always, you know, I stand around sometimes when I'm waiting for my food to cook, and I'll open up what people call a junk drawer. Mine's super organized, and I pull stuff out and I get rid of it. I mean, there's always a little bit you can do just hanging out that is kind of low key. And if you think, if it doesn't fit you, you know I'm not going to lose 20 pounds in any short time frame unless I'm sick. I mean, I'm not. So I'm like, do not lose 20 pounds in a short time frame. Do not. So any clothes I have that I can't wear, you know, let it go, because guess what? There's going to be new stuff out there that when I lose 20 pounds, if I lose 20 pounds, I get to go shopping. But having something in your closet that you look at it every day and say, I can't wear that because I have 20 pounds too many. Actually, that's not what we would say. We'd say because I'm fat. But whatever I would say to myself, it's not helpful. It'd be better to look at and not see it every day, right? So, I mean, there's lots of things in our houses that don't bring us joy, don't make us happy when we look at it. Oh, yes, Judith, it is okay if you have empty space in your cupboards. Absolutely. It's so nice. It's fun. Yeah. Judith, yeah, I actually put stuff out where I live often. And not always, but some things I do. And like this fellow I work with had a bunch of coats in really good shape. I put those out, and I get a lot of people who are houseless that walk by here, and they were gone. I think one woman came, and I told her, I go, tell your friends, and half hour, an hour, all those coats were gone. And that to me is like, yeah, I mean, somebody could have made money if I took them to the thrift shop, but I know that these people on the street would probably not be buying them. So I'd rather have, it was a direct donation to people on the street. So I'm okay with that. Just do a little bit every day or every week. They even say, set a stop, alarm, if you can't stand it, say, I'm going to do 15 minutes. I'm just going to set this clock and do 15 minutes of pick a drawer, I will say, if this is hard for you, if decision making is hard for you, don't start with your junk drawer. Because one of the things that happens is we put as much energy sometimes into biggish decisions or into smaller decisions as we do to bigger decisions. And if you get burnt out with this idea of letting go of stuff and you start with the small stuff, you're already burnt out before you've made many progress. So if you know that you're like that you're a person who this is hard, that you are going to look at every rubber band and say, I don't know, I might need this rubber band. If you're going to make those kind of decisions, and that's fine, but don't start there. Start with bigger things. Start with things where you're going to go, wow, I just got rid of that big thing. Don't start with the small things. And decision making is hard. I mean, Steve, who's the guy that always wore black? Stephen Jobs, because all these geniuses say, well, if I don't have to decide what I'm going to wear every day, I've got all that extra headspace to make decisions. And these geniuses say stuff like that. I'm like, well, I'm not a genius, but if it worked for them, maybe we're all spending too much time making the little decisions that wear us out from the big decisions. So if you're a person that feels that way, think about it. Think about where you're spending the time. Yeah, unless you can't handle the big stuff. That's the stuff that isn't, you're going to go, oh yeah, I don't want that. Oh yeah, I don't want that. Like I don't keep birthday cards. I don't keep, and my mom did. So, but cards from people, I don't get as many cards, probably because I don't keep them and people know that. But but I keep birthday cards, whatever cards for a while. And then I'm like, okay, that card is not that person. If they wrote something amazing, I do have a card a friend gave me that she wrote something amazing. I'll keep the amazing written stuff, but I don't just keep the cards to keep the cards. So, there might be, if you've had a birthday and you have a bunch of birthday cards, you may not need them all, things like that. So I would encourage you to think about whether you're moving a life plan Humboldt or not. Just realize that you can just do something every week. Think about something and pick the easy spots. Don't pick the most emotional stuff you have in your home. If you're really emotional about your clothes, that might not be the place to start. But find, and what's hard. Some people, books is super hard, and some people, books, I mean, I read a book and I take it back to the books place. I mean, I give it away. I don't keep, I have books I keep, but I don't keep every book I read. So whatever's easy, the easy stuff, start with that stuff. And leave the credit cards at home or put it on a wait list. We all know we don't need things the minute we think we do. I'm available. My team's available and when we do work, we generally do, like, especially this, in advance. It's like usually 2-hour sessions. We come in, do 2 hours worth of work. That's usually enough for most people to get started and build up your muscle. And then we take away what you've let go of. In my Harry Potter Prius, it's like Hermione's purse. You can just fit so much into it. And then, we go away and come back the next time and, just do a couple 2-hour stints to kind of keep you motivated. And then as you get closer to a move, then, things get more serious. But at this point in time, it's best to just make it a habit, not a like full throttle assault. crafttransitions.com. That's my email, but it's crafttransitions.com. Thank you, everybody, for your attention and comments. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Good
Maggie.
seeing you. Good seeing you guys again. I see all these familiar faces. It's fun.